You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, so today's guest and the person we're interviewing today is a legendary, guys, legendary drummer. This man has been on so many tracks, it is ridiculous. Like, one thing that I saw when I was doing some research before the interview said the most recorded drummer in the world, more than 50 number one hits he's played drums on. Legendary. Like, J.R. Robinson is on the phone, and I'm so excited to chat with you today, man. I can't wait to dive into this conversation.
Robert, man, it's really great to meet you, and thank you for your ears.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so let's dive into some stuff. There's probably a lot of people that don't follow music, and they should. I saw an interview you did on a YouTube channel where it said that, like, music is literally the best addiction, and I 100% agree with you with that statement. But give me a little bit of your backstory and tell me kind of where your journey with music started from, childhood, college, and then eventually this pro level that you became.
Yeah, well, I was obviously very blessed with two wonderful parents, Jack and Helen. I grew up in a little town in southwest Iowa called Creston. It was actually the big railroad town in southwest Iowa between Chicago and Denver. And that town was incredibly musical, as I found out later. But my dad was an optometrist, and he also ran the local chorus, was a violin player, and was a great piano player. And so he taught me how to play piano, or started me on lessons at age 5. And I believe I was mathematically not ready, and I didn't take to it. And then between 7 and 8, I got hit by the drum bolt. And I don't know where it came from, but it did. And I was able to just play right out of the gates on this old set that was given to me. And I turned pro when I was 10 with my first gig, and just started going to camps and jazz camps mostly, and some music camps. And I also was a basketball player. I'd gone to Iowa State University for that. But after that, I moved. The whole Iowa thing was really, really great. I had an incredible music education there, and that's something I'm a very proponent of is getting kids involved in the arts. And I mean, I was an athlete also, but I think that the arts keeps you incredibly well rounded for your entire life. And but I told my father, I go, I was going to go to North Texas State, where Ed Sof, one of my teachers, was the head drum set percussion teacher. And when I did some clinics and study with Ed, Ed goes, no, you should go to Berkeley and Boston. And that was an incredible, just great insight from him, because there's a lot more variety the way I played. So I, after high school, headed off to Boston and went to Berkeley College of Music. Nice.
Yeah. So when you were at Berkeley, you started kind of learning the fundamentals of drumming, right? But there's some like studio work that you started doing with a bunch of different like local Boston artists, right?
Well, let's reverse that. I mean, I had already learned the fundamentals of drumming by the time I was between 10 and 12, and I was a teacher. And when I was at age 12 and 13, I had like 14 students.
Wow.
So I was always teaching. So the reason to go to Berkeley was to get a global sense, meet people from around the world, play with all sorts of different people, and what you do is just elevate your game. And I was always, I was an all-state singer in Iowa, singing bass. So I used to sing in church a little bit, and my prowess was, to go to jazz and big band and rock. So, I decided to go to Berkeley and then learn just a whole nother level of that level.
Wow. You're like a prodigy, dude.
Well, it was a bolt. Like I have a book which we'll plug at the end, but it's like I got hit by this bolt between 7 and 8. I don't know what it was, but it's been a great thing. So when I got to Boston, I started. There's a lot of peers, and a lot of there were older guys there and girls, and mostly guys in my day. And so I tried to hook up with them and then get into different kind of ensembles and bands with them. And then eventually I was working in Boston. In my second semester, I was asked to come into the studio. Now, in those days at Berkeley, there were no major studios like there are today. There was just a room with an old Scully 8-track, which is this giant R2-D2 looking thing, and that only ran 8 tracks. And they go, John, have you ever heard what a click track? You know what a click track is? I go, no, I didn't. What is it? He goes, well, it's this square wave, awful sound, and you're going to hear 4 of these clicks, and then you just play the chart from top to bottom. So it was like a Thad Jones, Mel Lewis chart, and it was kind of like a music minus one thing. So I set up, I looked at the chart, I heard the 4 click, boom, played it top to bottom. And then the engineer, his name was Joe Hostetter, said, do you want to do another tune? I go, yeah. So I became the studio drummer at Berkeley, and that was in 74.
Okay, just curious, 74. Okay, so the recording session there, like when you were at Berkeley, was that mic'd up? Like the guitarist had a mic, the drummer had a mic, the singer had a mic, like just 5 or 6 channels, and that was it?
Yeah, so when we would play with the rhythm section, yes, that is it. But like for this thing I just talked about before was, probably 4 mics on the drum set. I mean, I used an old 1972 Gretsch bebop set, which I still have. And there was a mic on the kick and a mic on the snare and maybe an overhead or a stereo overhead. And there were no toms. That was it.
Wow. What's the comparison to today? How many microphones do you mic up with
now?
Oh,
God. Well, I have several ways to record here in my house. And my main drum room, I'm using 16 microphones.
Wow. Yeah,
but you got to make sure there's no phasing and all that stuff. And one kick is a kick in, and then there's a kick mic out in front for a kind of a low whoopy sound and those kind of things.
Makes sense. So where was the transition from being in Boston and then working your way into professional stuff? You were in a band for a little while in the beginning, correct?
I was when I got to Boston, I was not working until November of my first semester, and then I started working with these Italian dudes, and playing a lot of clubs, and then doing a lot of Italian weddings, which was wow. I mean, it was kind of an interesting thing. We had really, really hot, cute chicks, great food, and great music, but that led into more bands and more bands. And so I was always working from the end of my first semester on. And, I went through 3 straight years at Berkeley, but then I reached a point where I was becoming frustrated like everybody. And I was going to move to New York and be a drummer in New York. And, that was always the goal, because New York is like the highest level. You can't jump over any higher bar than that. Mm-hmm. But then I was starting to see that New York was drying up a little bit. So I was in this band called Shelter. It was an 8-piece kind of a soul show band, and we were touring Ohio. And this was in early 1978, and we just happened to be on a parallel course with Rufus and Chaka Khan. And one night at this great club we were playing called the Rare Cherry, it sounded exactly like it was, and they came in, and by the end of the second set, asked the leader of the band, "Can we sit in with your drummer?" And I just looked at him and shook my head, yes. And I had known every Rufus song ever, because it was more of a cult band anyway in those days. And so pretty soon everybody in that band was on stage with Chaka with me, and we blew down a good set and a half, and then I joined that band 2 weeks later and moved from Boston to Los Angeles in one failed swoop.
Amazing. Wow, man. Wow. So then eventually when you weren't with the band, you started doing some session stuff, because that's what you're really known for, is this being this incredible session drummer. You're like on all these major tracks from tons of generations, really. But like,
yeah.
Which one was the Chaka Khan stuff kind of the first one? Like, what was that track? Ain't Nobody? Or did you get on some other stuff prior to that?
There was a lot of stuff prior to that. When I joined the band, and I do talk about this in the book, when I joined the band, I finished out the 78 World Tour, and Chaka and I hung out, and she goes, "Oh man, I'm really glad you're in the band. I'm really, really glad. But guess what, man? I'm leaving the band." I go, "What?" I go, I just got in the band. And yeah, do you want to come with me? She asked. And I go, "Well, no, I have an allegiance to the four guys." Mm-hmm. So I stayed in there. We cut a record on ABC Dunhill called Numbers. And I had helped, I brought Freddie Hubbard in on one track because I'd known Freddie, and that was my very first record I cut was in 1969 with my Creston Junior High jazz band. We won Mid-America Best Band in Omaha, Mid-America Jazz Festival, and I have that record, but that wasn't a for sale record. Mm-hmm. And then so this Numbers record was the actual first official record on ABC Dunhill. Then we got together with Quincy Jones, and he produced Master Jam. And then I immediately became Quincy's drummer because he and I hit it off just like we were joined at the hip.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things that Quincy Jones said about you when I was doing some research, man. Like that's a legend in himself, like just praising you on every little thing that I saw. He was like, "Oh yeah, JR everywhere." Like I loved that.
Well, he was the one that named me JR. Actually, I mean, I got a little bit in high school, but I'm a John Robinson, and my father was a John Robinson. My father used once I became Quincy gave everybody nicknames. So like Michael Jackson was Smelly, and Louis Johnson was Boot, and anyway, it went on like Greg Gaines was Mouse because he ran around like a mouse, But nice. So I got the only normal nickname, which was JR. So JR stuck. And my dad, when I used to come back to Iowa before he had passed, he goes, "What is this JR stuff, man? Why did I go, Dad, just roll with it, man."
Right, that's how I would have been. I would have been like, "Listen, Dad, Quincy Jones calls me this, so now everyone's going to call me this."
and it's kind of like John J. Robinson or J.R. Robinson. Like, okay, I got four identities, but I think Mr. Taxman's got me as one. So.
I love it, dude. Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, so I was jamming out to this, like I said, this playlist.
On Spotify.
That someone created on Spotify. That's just every song that you've ever played on. The collection is incredible. But as I was going through it, I'm 44, and I've been in the music industry since I was 16. I played guitar and write and all kinds of stuff too. Yeah, so I knew. I mean, this is my childhood. This is the stuff that my mom was jamming in the living room that I was being like, bit by, listening to Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson and like Chaka Khan, all these songs. And then when I started listening to these things, started bringing all these childhood memories back. And I'm like, this guy, every one of these songs, like every one of them, like that's incredible to me that you have this wide collective of stuff that you played on, but like you have a type, right? Is it a little bit kind of like you're kind of in the, I don't know, I'm going to call it funk. Like you were in that area and that era, like in the very beginning, 70s, 80s, 90s issue?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to classify it, but don't forget I was with Streisand also.
Okay. Yeah.
And I do a lot of film. I mean, I'm basically, I don't say it's basically, but I chose to be in 1,000 bands instead of one band.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why, is because I can mold myself and to any style of music there is on this planet and to blend it. Like right now I'm doing a classical tenor from Germany named Michael Kleitman. and I've worked with him before many years ago, and it's a completely different thing. And I've got my my power trio, and then I've got my solo thing, the J.R. Robinson Experience, that's going out,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that for me, variety is the key. And I mean, Herbie Hancock is a lot like that too. So, I've always looked up to Herbie for the fact that, you can turn left whenever you want.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of be individualized, which you currently are. Like you're just this one man show by yourself. But then, like you said, being in so many different bands, so many different genres, like it's incredible that you were able to kind of spread your career out so far and reach all kinds of stuff. I mean, like Chaka Khan for sure. But then there was like Lionel Richie, and I heard you on Daft Punk album, like
Right.
so many different genres that you wouldn't even expect. And then boom, there you are, the JR everywhere. I love that, dude. When I was doing the research and reading about stuff and like watching videos and listening to the music and stuff, and I was like, man, I recognize these beats. Like one of the biggest things that I saw on YouTube about you was Higher Love with Steve Winwood. And,
Oh, yeah.
And I watched the whole story where you got interviewed about the story and how that all kind of played out and stuff. And you kind of like, raising your hand like a little kid and be like, pick me. I want to do drums on this.
Right. Right.
But the beginning of that song is you created that lick in the very beginning, like that whole thing, right?
Yes. And, I was in New York at that exact same time working with George Benson and the great late Tommy LaPuma. At Clinton Recording Studios, and I just happened to be there. And my good friend Russ Teileman was our producer of Rufus and Chaka Khan for Ain't Nobody on that live record at Stompin' at the Savoy, which is, by the way, to me, mandatory live listening for drummers listening now. It's not. I'm not stroking myself. It's just a great record to listen to for live interpretation. But I got a call. I just got done with the session from George and went back to the hotel, and I got a phone call. And this was not cell phones, by the way. And Russ goes, John, I know you're in town with Tommy. George, want to come over to the studio? And I go, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm producing Steve Winwood. I go, oh, wow. Yeah, man, I can be over in an hour. He goes, okay. So like you said, I come in and I'm standing up in the back, kind of shy. And he goes, no, why don't you sit here in front, between the speakers? I go, okay. And they played a real naked track of Higher Love. There was nothing on there. There was no Nile Rodgers on guitar. There was no Chaka Khan on BVs. There was no drums. It was a Jimmy Brailauer loop. And there was no, Steve Winwood was like all Fairlight and stab parts and a bass line that Steve had played. No vocals. And it was just smoking. And I just, after it's done, and I raised my hand like a third grader. Can I play on this? Can I play on that? And then Russ goes, why do you think you're here?
I love it.
And I'm going, all right. And then, when can you get your drums over? I go, well, I got a day off tomorrow. So boom. And normally in New York, as you may or may not know, there's not a lot of cartage activity. Most studios have drum sets.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to they flew my stuff out from L.A. So it was sitting there with the great Artie Smith, and so we just moved it over there, set it up, and started working.
Yeah, so that's something that I did know about, and I was going to ask you about this too. So I've done booking for bands, and I've done all kinds of fun stuff in my long career in entertainment industry. And
right,
it's always when you book them, I always get the brief on what you need to have when the music artist comes in, and you always have to provide a drum kit, always. And I'm like, they don't have their own, they don't travel with them. But then when I saw like some stuff with you, I was like, man, this guy goes nowhere without his own personal drum kit. So like, that's still a thing for you even to today, always has been?
No, because I've been touring with David Foster for quite a while now, because David and I are like brothers I've been working with David in the studio since '81 on a Bill Champlin record. But live, we started working together in '95, where we helped fund Andre Agassi's school system in Las Vegas for underprivileged children.
Awesome.
And so we'd always have an all-star band. And that developed into the Muhammad Ali Parkinson's Celebrity Fight Night. And then now we've been doing with the David Foster Foundation, and now I tour with David. I just got back actually from Southeast Asia 2 weeks ago, doing 4 countries. And like, if we're not touring the United States and bringing our own gear, it would be David's piano and my drums, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to get backline. And so it's backline is really difficult because if, let's say, I'm coming into a city like Orlando and doing something, some big event or something, and they're not bringing my drums, so they got to get backline, and so I basically have to come in there with my tech and build a drum set for 45 minutes to my specs. Get it? It's like starting over every city.
All
and
right, yeah.
a lot of people think it's glamorous, but you really think about the chain of command and all the people that it takes to put on a live show.
Right.
And so the answer is no. I'm still getting backline. So thank God for like companies like Don Lombardi, John Good with DW. Their backline supply around the world is quite special.
That's awesome. Yeah, because there's a lot of tuning that has to happen and like adjusting and lining things up correctly. And if the drums aren't good, then you're not going to hit the sounds you really need to hit for tracks. So like that makes that makes a lot of sense to me. But that's like when you're saying it starts fresh, like you have to start fresh every time you get to a new place. That's kind of stressful as a drummer. It's not that difficult for other instruments, but like that part kind of is eye-opening to me because as a guitar player and like playing out all the time, you throw it in your guitar case, you show up, you tune it for 10 minutes and you're on stage and ready to go. Like that's it.
Exactly. And guitar players get all the chicks.
Yeah. Well, drummers do too, but just depends on which part of the country you're in.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, we'll put an end on this is like, yeah, we're tuning the drums, but sometimes on a backline situation, you don't even have the correct heads. I'm a Remo artist. Sometimes they've got the other brand on there. I go, what is this? You go, well, that's all we have. Or sometimes the cymbals are a mismatch between 4 companies. And so, I use like all sorts. It's like when you get back home and you get in your car and it's your car.
Yeah.
And it drives for you, it's like, the drums are my wife, and now I've got a drum set that I don't even know who she is, So
like she just came home as a brunette and she was a redhead when she left, and you just don't know what to do with her.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, so you try to strip the wig off.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Enough of that.
Understandable. Okay. Well, I have 2 more topics I really want to dive into with you. And just because you've had so many like amazing experiences, I wondered if you talk to me a little bit about like just some session stuff with people that, the most, there must be a moment for you, even with all of the people that you worked with, just kind of that pinch me moment. Like, am I really in the studio with this guy or this woman? Like, or this band? Like, there must be some of those moments for you. Could you kind of pinpoint one and tell me a little bit of a session story? I know you got hundreds, but like one really good one would be like a good juicy one for us.
Oh, well, juicy. Well, that would be Madonna.
Ah, okay.
But I mean, I don't speak a lot about it. I played on 2 songs. One made the record and was Express Yourself. And Pat Leonard was producing, and I had gone over there and got everything set up, sounds mic, learned the song, wrote my chart, did a couple of run-throughs, recorded them, and then I'm looking at my watch, and Pat goes, well, Madonna likes to usually watch the drummer when he works. I go, well, where is she? Well, I guess she's running late. I go, well, you know what? Heck with that, man. So I went ahead and started cutting. I cut the song, and I went back and sat with the engineer and Pat and listened. I go, God, this is really good. Yeah, he goes, yeah, this is really good. I'm going to have to just wait for her. And I'm sitting out in the lobby having a coffee, and all of a sudden she comes in her beautiful, hot little sweatpants and kind of bends over in my face. And I go, well, JR, this is the Donna. I go, how you doing? And, she goes, it's very nice to meet you. I hear, everything great about you, and you were, with Quincy and Rufus and all this stuff. And, I cut the song without you being here. I hope it's okay. She goes, yeah, it's okay. Why don't we I'm going to go and listen. So she goes in, and we sit her down right between the speakers, and I'm kind of standing over her. Everybody's standing, and it's cranking. And you know, in the studios, you've got that like white area where you write underneath the track in a black erasable pen.
Yep.
So she grabs that pen, and she's writing, and you can't see what she's writing as the track starts, and then it builds, and it goes into the chorus, and this word she's writing is bigger and bigger, and we're not sure, and she's got it covered up, and then finally the track ends, and she just looks over my shoulder, and she goes, "It's fucking great." and she gets up, puts the pen down, and walks over to her like board of work that she's doing, and crosses off, "My drums were done." Well, I looked down at the word, and the word was cock.
COCK.
Yes, sir. Now, I know we're on a podcast, and
it's all good. Yeah,
the kids are there, but that's a bit of a juicy story. So I guess her interpretation was correlated to that word. And,
okay.
I've got others.
Yeah,
I've got others.
Madonna's reputation in the music industry for years and years was very much like this Marilyn Monroe kind of sexualized character. Like, that's exactly who she was. So this you telling me this is like, yeah, I could see that happening. Like, that's for sure. Like, she probably had some things going on in her head while she was listening to that. And music is like that like blood flow in your body, right? Like, even for any musician, but like when you feel something, there's just got to be some related. So her writing that down is awesome, man. That means that your drums were kind of, got her head thinking a little.
yeah. And I'm sure. I mean, listen, I got tons of stories. I've been very, very graced with the fact that I've worked with the best female singers in the last 40 years, starting with Chaka. And then, the next one was Diana Ross, Missing You. And she sent me a 3-foot bouquet of flowers the next day. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And then I started working with Stevie Nicks and the Pointer Sisters and just all sorts of stuff. It just kept going. And then, I ended up started working with Barbara, which was a complete different end of the spectrum. As a perfectionist and a director, and just such a great singer and an artist. She's not a theory trained person, but she's a genius. And we actually, I've got a Streisand session coming up here in 2 weeks. We're going in and cutting a new tune, so that'll be good.
I love that.
It's nice that people are still. Thinking in the art way with all the kind of, strange music that's happening today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this whole friendship thing you have going on with David Foster. As a songwriter myself, he is one of my top 3 guys for sure. The guy has written hit after hit, like legendary stuff. Like, when I think about David Foster and songwriting and where his music has gone, and then I put you in the same category and where you've played, I can understand why you guys are on the same trajectory and you cross paths and you got this close relationship. But one thing that I was thinking of was, like, I watched a lot of the David Foster and Friends like events, right? And when he does the big shows and everything, and I was like, JR's got something like this, or should have something like this. And then when I was actually reading the PR brief, I was like, oh, there's a J.R. Robinson experience. Is this something similar to that?
Yes. I
Yes?
guess it could
Okay.
it could be similar, because what we're doing is, we started this in Omaha about 3 years ago. And sorry, the call's blowing in here. What my team and I have decided to do, I have the trio also called SRT, which is kind of an organ trio, and we just played last week, and this week we're at Kumwa and Santa Cruz. But the J.R. Robinson experience will be hits that I've played, plus, and it won't be syrupy. It's going to be. There was an old adage about give the people what they want, without sacrificing your artistic freedom.
Right.
And this is going to be a very, very fun venture, which I will have, maybe a Stanley Clark or Victor Wooten with me, but I'll have a lead singer, and I'll have a little bit larger band than normal. So yeah, this is going to be taking off by 25.
By 25, awesome. That's something I'm going to pay attention to, man. I definitely want to come to something like that. That's what I liked about, and I don't know if this is already preset and you're kind of putting things together, but what I love about David Foster and Friends so much is that he told a story about the song, about the track. There was something, and then it segued into like this cool introduction where they actually played it. So if you're creating something like that with all of this history that you have, like that's something that I would love to see like live. So when that comes out in 25, definitely reconnect with me and we'll blitz out those dates for you. Like no problem, man. So man, it was awesome to talk to you, JR. I know you got a busy schedule. I appreciate you kind of coming and connecting with us to do the interview. You're a legend in your own right on the drums, and I really highly appreciate strong musicians. So thank you so much for your time today. It's a huge honor to talk with you.
Robert, thank you. And if I may do my plug, my book comes out September 1st, and it's been just a beautiful labor of love with my producer, Allie. It's called King of the Groove. So people will be able to get it through Amazon, kingofthegroove.com and johnjrrobinson.com.
Okay, awesome. And I'll put links to those things in the article, and I'll also make sure they're in the bottom of the podcast description so we can get some traffic for those things as well. So very cool, man. I really appreciate it again.
Excellent.
Thank you, JR.
Robert, my honor, man, and God bless everybody, man. You guys have a good run here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.